books and all the work.
Go ahead, Whit.
I mean, it can be done either way, where you're...
I just...
Majestic, but it's eerie.
50s, so they're very old, but well, I'll take that.
So trees are 40 foot high to the ground.
Down through Fayette County and comes
Meaning has such a whatever it is.
They're probably EVPs.
The eyes of a cat. Who knows what they're...
Witch doctor, usually there.
A self-described witch, and
Hey folks, good evening and welcome to another episode of Phantoms Monsters Radio, where we explore the strange and the unexplained. I'm your host, Lon Strickler. Thank you for joining me. If you enjoy our content, please subscribe, like, and share our presentations, and please feel free to leave a comment. Super Chat's active during the show, so please show your support for Phantoms Monsters Radio by clicking the dollar icon underneath the chat. You can also support the channel by clicking Super Thanks icon or the Buy Me a Coffee link or banner. Your consideration is very much needed and appreciated. So tonight, we've got the team. Got a few of the folks from the Phantoms Monsters Fortean Research team joining me this evening, and we're going to talk about a few things. So I hope you enjoy it. Then we're going to start off Carter Bouchard, who has been an investigator with BFRO for the last 13 years. Originally from Texas and currently lives in Missouri, he has had nearly 100 reports published on the BFRO website and has interviewed over 400 witnesses and counting. He is an experienced outdoorsman and trained as an investigator for MUFON. He studied herpetology in college, longtime special interest in Sasquatch long-term habituation sites, burial research, infrasound, language, and stick structures. He is a true boots-on-the-ground researcher and investigator, and not a desktop warrior. He has met and visited the properties of nearly half of the witnesses whose reports have been published. He monitors and visits several properties with ongoing habituation activity to this day. He's the author of 5 books, Sasquatch Evidence of the Enigma, 1, 2, 3, and second editions of his first 2 books. Carter is the active member of Phantoms Monsters Fortean's research team. His website can be found at relichominid.com. Thomas Carroll is a resident of Somerset County, Pennsylvania, as an avid outdoorsman and hunter. He joined Phantoms Monsters Fortean Research about a year ago and has already been involved with several investigations in western Pennsylvania. Thomas also hosts the Forgotten Faces podcast, which focuses on the Korean War. And Chad M. Redding grew up in the Pigeon Hills region of western York County, Pennsylvania. A lifetime of roaming the woods, hills, and hollows led Chad to develop his passion and skills as a woodsman. Very much an avid lover of old traditional ways and old things. His love of the forest and mountains know no bounds. For he has camped, rambled, gathered, canoed, and fished in all 4 seasons. As a lover of the local history and folklore, wonder of forgotten places, and lifelong experiencer of the strange, Chad also contributes to and works with Timothy Renner on the Strange Familiars podcast. Chad is also an active member of Phantoms Monsters Fortean Research team. Chad became the proprietor of Ruck Rabbit Outdoors, a company that supplies old-style crafted, curated, and refurbished and surplus gear to the woods folk community. So, gentlemen, thanks for joining me this evening.
Well, you're quite welcome.
You're going to get everybody up there, Vincent. I guess he did. Okay, good.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad you all made it. It's been kind of busy. I mean, then when I say busy, for me, it's mostly what's going on in Chicago. But I'm going to go around the horn here. Carter, give us an idea of what you've been up to, what you've been looking into recently.
Well, my habituation properties, I manage or monitor, let's just say, 4 of them. And one of them is off the charts, crazy busy. It's kept me pretty busy since July, when they had still do have a lot of stuff going on, but that's been occupying most of my time. And I just released my book, so I just finished it 3 weeks ago. I mean, I've been working on it since October, and so I just got done with that. So, the winter, I just kind of hibernated and wrote and monitored this bizarre place I have. Oh, there's another one. That's the other place I'm monitoring that's crazy right now. That's I can't tell you where it is, but that book cover right there, that's got a very interesting story behind it. Basically, there's 4 seconds between the hunter, the landowner, walking, checking his cameras. 4 seconds later, that Sasquatch appeared right.
Is that right?
Yeah. Look at the time date stamp. It's like a 3:12 in the afternoon and 36 seconds. The handprint is 3:12, 40 seconds.
Wow. Interesting.
It's the same place. You can see the shadow beneath the hand. You can see the shadow beneath the hunter. You can see the log laying in the background. You can see the log laying in the background there. I've been there twice, and I think Hulu actually we taped a show that never is going to see the light of day there, but mostly due to infighting with the production people. I mean, it was just it was a mess. It's a long story. I mean, very nice.
Been there.
Yeah, somebody took over the filming halfway through, and it screwed it all up. So anyway, but so that's what I've been doing the last 6-8 months, is finishing that book right there you're looking at, and there's 2 really awesome stories in there, among others. But that's what I've been up to. Pretty crazy stuff, though. Actually, it's pretty exciting, And so they have ongoing activity. They had chased a Sasquatch out of their Quonset hut, I'll call it. They have 3 big buildings that are basically what do you call them? They're vegetable growing. They're growing vegetables in the winter. So there's 3 basically tents in a row. They're long tents with arched roof and heavy plastic, got heaters in them to grow, but they have 5 or 6 Sasquatch monitoring their property. They're standing there watching them, literally standing behind a tree or standing out next to the tree, just watching my people work their land. I mean, they're just they have no fear.
And this is in Missouri?
Yeah. I can't say where, but yeah, it's
I get it. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, it's Missouri. And here's the thing. The father has had 2 sightings, Class A's, and now he has a son and 2 or 3 other sons, and they all have activity on their respective properties. And so it's just crazy, I mean, I went and met everybody, and there was like 9 people in there. I couldn't believe it. They all just showed me all these pictures and photos and stuff, and I'm just, oh my God, I think I just hit the Powerball. Oh my goodness. It was awesome. I mean, they were just so energetic and excited, and to have somebody down there, and the neighborhood has kind of ostracized them a little bit where they live.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the stories are just fantastical, So I've been down there twice, and I'm going back again because we got to figure out a way to get camera traps set. But some of if we have time later, maybe some of the photos.
Okay.
I've sent them to Vince, so he's got them. But anyway, that's what I've been up to. Just finish the book, and this thing fell in my lap as I was halfway through the book. I mean, I didn't even know these people.
Right.
So a former witness who knows them, he's had 2 Sasquatch. He's 2 of my reports are Class A visual face-to-face encounters with a Sasquatch. One when he was up in a blind, and one when he was just standing there face-to-face, 30, 40 feet away from each other. Just crazy stuff. But these people are attracted to these simple, hardworking folks. They don't kill for sport. They kill to feed their families. They have Sasquatch on their property, monitoring what's going on. This family that where I got this here in Missouri, they have 3 family members, each with their own activity on their own properties. So there's and they're all related or know each other very well. So there's 5 people, 5 separate properties, all within about a 3 or 4 mile area, having all sorts of just crazy stuff. I mean, it's just, they walk around like they own the place, and they do. I mean, they come and go. You can watch them watching them. It's just bizarre, but that's what it's like when you're in a rural area. And these Sasquatch trust you. They come and they go. The people come and go. They took pictures. They try to take pictures. I've got some pretty good photos, which you might see later. But it's just bizarre and phenomenal that these beings. There's 5 Sasquatch on that property that I'm speaking of, and they see them all the time, daily if they want to. I mean, it's just because they're in the middle of nowhere. It's fantastic. This is one of the best habituation families I've met so far. I've got 2 or 3 others that are pretty much off the charts, but this one's starting to take the cake. We really see some of those photos. It's mind blowing. Anyway.
Well, now Thomas and Chad are part of the Pennsylvania team here, and they've been doing some things. I don't know if Chad's had a case yet. He's been part of one, but which we're going to look into. I'm going to talk about. But Thomas, he had an investigation up in Cambria County. So why don't you give us an overlook of what you saw up there?
Well, we went up there twice. I went up in the spring, and then later on in the summer. And the first one in the spring, we had actually found a several-day-old Bigfoot print, and the witnesses there had several encounters over a short span in that very area, and have had many encounters over the years, which the Wilmore Reservoir kind of seems to be a hotbed for canines. Now, I didn't find any sign of canines, but we did see sign of Bigfoot. They had said that whatever it was, they didn't see it. They could hear it. It was definitely walking on 2 legs, and it more or less seemed to be just following them around, checking them out. It never did anything to them, never bothered them. But we went back in the summer and found no definitive sign there. So I'm of the belief that maybe the spring is more likely for them. A migration of some sorts, maybe, that they come and go. Yeah, in fact,
that area is well known for cryptid canines. I mean, like I said, I told you earlier, we've had, well, including what you looked into, that's 4 sightings up there on that reservoir. That's Wilmore Reservoir, and that's just north of Portage, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
That area up there.
it's more west of Portage than north,
Okay.
but it's all within a couple mile area, and it's very heavily wooded. There's not much there, all farmland. Like, so in fact, when we were there in the spring, even Bernadette had an experience of something. We're not sure what. She could hear like something rushed up on her.
Yeah, I remember.
I didn't hear it. I was off to the woods a little bit, and whatever it was, we never saw it. But she said it was big.
Mm.
Like it was trying to just scare us out of there. So.
Well, you know, Butch investigated a few of the sightings up there, and in Portage. We had 3 sightings right in Portage back in 2014, 15, around that time. Then up there at the Wilmore Reservoir, and this is all in Cambria County, we had a white cryptid canine sighting. And it could, I mean, you know, that's what they said it was. It could have even been a Bigfoot. I don't know. But, you know, I do know we have had cases, you know, we had sightings up there reported to us. And I've talked to Stan about it. He's also heard a few things up there. So, yeah, Cambria County is a kind of a hot spot for us.
Yeah. I know the witnesses, they said their family had experiences for years. Even they said their father had seen a winged humanoid right at the reservoir itself.
Really?
Years ago, yeah.
Doesn't surprise me. So, Chad, what you been up to? I know you. You know, we've talked before. You and I were at that Bigfoot meeting up by Biglerville, up the other side of Michaud. So, what you been looking into lately?
Well, back in October, I went camping up in Tuscarora State Forest, which is about an hour and a half north from where I'm located in York County.
Yeah, I know.
And I had a friend of mine, well, 2 friends of mine come from down from Canada, and it was for their podcast and partially for ours. And we spent basically 2 nights and 3 days in this place known as Pandemonium, which is listed as a ghost town, literally as a ghost town. It used to also be an old CCC camp. And within those 2 nights, we had multiple phenomenon. We actually had on the last night, well, the first night, a friend of mine was sleeping in his tent. He had something actually poke through his tent and rub the bottom of his foot, which was quite interesting. We had 1 or 2 wood knocks, I guess you could say, or bangs on trees. They weren't actual tree noises. We know what the tree noises. We had the 4 guys that were counting me we were all camping together. We're all very experienced outdoorsmen, all 4 of us. So we had a lot of knowledge in that camp of different regions. My friend Caleb, who was from Canada, he's been to the Amazon. He's been out to Wyoming. He's been to various places. And a lot of the noises we heard, we couldn't explain. On the second night, we actually had something come into camp, and we saw it on the edge of the firelight. And on the edge of the firelight and the lantern light we had going, it was huge and gray. It actually came up behind my friend Tom's tent, which was pretty darn spooky. And then we had a lot of also the typical high strangeness phenomenon, lights in the woods, stuff like that. Didn't really hear any calls, though. Me and Tim had camped in that area, I think 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and we actually had calls in that area. Me and Tim were woken up by multiple wood knocks that night. On the second night, like I said, we had something come into camp. We decided that we were going to walk the perimeter to try and, establish a perimeter. And my friend Caleb is actually indigenous Canadian. And we saw multiple things moving up and down the hill, because it was moonlight. You could see these things moving up and down. We were camped on the side of a mountain, and you could see it moving up and down the mountainside, down into a swamp down below us. We ended up seeing this huge light. We have no idea what it was. It was bright. It was, I would say, almost from my perspective, for the distance, it was probably about, I would guess, quarter of a mile away or something like that, but you could see it lit up the whole woods. It looked like somebody had a spotlight through a crystal, and there was multiple beams coming up, and you could just see it traveling through the woods down in the valley, which was basically a swamp. It was just this big bright white light. There was nobody in that area at all. There's no roads that go through there. The trees and the bushes were all lit up by this, and then it just went out. And then this you'll like, towards the end, there's a spot where it kind of comes down, it evens out, and then there's a rock formations, and it drops down. I don't want to say a cliff, but it's like a steep drop down into the where the swamp is, where the creek runs through the valley.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a narrow valley between two mountains. And he saw what he said, something humanoid stand up, lift its arms up or wings, and then just go straight up into the sky.
Is that right?
Yes. And all this was over the course of basically 2 days and 3 nights. During the day, we thought we seen some weird rhombus shapes moving through the woods, up in the trees. So, which was kind of bizarre, but we had that. There's this one encounter down below York and Lake Redmond that we're going to be checking into. A man had an encounter with a Sasquatch, which is pretty unusual because that area, it's not deep woods at all.
Well, but we have had sightings down there, and
yes.
There's a for people who don't know, York, Pennsylvania, it's just north of the Maryland line, but down there, Lake Redmond, I guess that's the water reservoir for York City.
Yeah, it's one of the reservoirs. It's actually like
right.
2 or 3 lakes that kind of join each other,
right? And
it's kind of state parklands or county parklands.
Well, there have been a lot of sightings even down closer to, and Tim knows this because Tim used to live down in Maryland, so he knows there's been a lot of sightings near the Mason-Dixon line, and yeah, we get a lot of crazy stuff around here.
Well, we've had a lot of activities down in there, especially in the one spot we call Gazoo's Woods. I just this weekend, had a gentleman contact me, and he had a sighting back in 2008 in Michaud State Forest, which is one of my normal rambling spots. And now this is older, but basically he was camping down in a ridge, and he was one of these guys that do the long hunter reenactments.
Mm-hmm.
So basically they were sleeping with wool blankets by a long fire. So there was no tent or anything like that.
Oh,
and it was
where at in Michaud? Do you know the general area?
I think he said Newman Road. So I think it's on the western side.
Right.
And basically they had heard a noise, and then they looked over, and the woods was lit up with like a bluish light. And then they were hearing the garbled noises, which he said later on he went back and he checked over, and it was similar to the samurai speech. So,
oh my God, I hear about that so many times. People talking about that samurai speech. Carter, have you ever heard that from anybody? Any witnesses?
I've heard it myself.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, I went. I was having a rough week, and I told my wife I'm going to go down to our research area, Ellington, Missouri. I was going to get away and go. And I had all my equipment and everything. When I got there, I said, screw it. I don't want to put my equipment out. So I sat there on the fire. I'd had a bad week, and I was just drinking at the fire. I had all my equipment sitting out, and I told the Sasquatch, I just said, hey guys, I'm here. I don't have any cameras up. I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting here. I've had a bad week. If you want to come talk to me, throw a rock, do something, I'm here. Otherwise, that's it. There's no equipment. There's no cameras. You're free to move about the area.
Just don't hit me with the rock, though, right?
Yeah,
Just don't hit me with the rock.
And so I hear this. What? Just bizarre stuff. And I knew what it was, but this is an area where I can go 90% of the time. I'm going to have some kind of activity. So I heard that chatter. It was a million miles an hour, and it didn't make, and there was some laughing. They were laughing kind of like hyenas. Just, snickering, and like they were trying to hide it. And then they would just laugh out loud. It was just bizarre. I almost thought it was juveniles, because the tonality of the voice wasn't large. So I've heard that, and Ron, did commentary on my first book. I mean, he's like the guy for that Chinaman chatter, that language. But I've heard it. Other people have heard it. So several of my witnesses have had their names called.
Yeah.
It's the romantic nickname that their spouses call them when they're them around the house. You hear this Sin Sin, Sin Sin, Sin Sin, which is Cindy. Sin Sin, Sin Sin, because that's what his wife is. That's what her husband calls her, when there's just them around the house. So yeah, I've heard it. It's like a real thing. They have a language.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
I've had witnesses tell me the same thing. I mean, I've never heard it, but I mean, I've had witnesses tell me about it. Chad, I wanted to ask you this. You talked about a CCC camp, and for people who don't know what CCC is, I forget what it stood for. Conservation.
The CCC was the Civilian Conservation Corps.
Exactly.
Camp.
It was during
the 1930s, during the Great Depression. They were established to put men to work, and a lot of Pennsylvania state forests and state parks were created then.
Well, and that's what I wanted to mention to you, because I know there's one up in Michaud.
Yeah, I've been there.
And that actually, they used that for a POW camp for German prisoners of war during World War II.
Yeah, I've actually recorded.
And I was going to ask you if you ever been up there.
I've been there numerous times. Yeah, we're currently working on something that has been happening there, and I've recorded some crazy stuff there, and I've camped there and have some odd, bizarre things happen there. So, yeah, it's definitely a active area.
Yeah.
Whether I don't know if it's paranormal, cryptid, whatever. There's been multiple things that have happened up there.
I've heard a few things over there. I've heard Bigfoot and Bigfoot sightings around there. If anybody knows Michaud, you get Bigfoot sightings here and there everywhere. I mean, it's just of course people don't know that the Appalachian Trail runs right in the middle of that thing, north and south.
The actual halfway point is there also.
Yeah.
For the AT.
Yeah. Double D, who's in there, mentioned something about Dead Woman's Howl, and we had an upright canine sighting up there, and Butch and I looked into. So Michaud and Deadwood Howl it's an area up off the Pine Furnace Road that goes north from Caledonia up north into the cabin areas into Laurel Lake. But that's we've had upright canine dogman encounters there as well. Michaud's an interesting place. It really is.
It is. It's got a lot of history. I mean, even as far back as the indigenous peoples, because there was actually it's very much been disturbed land for a lot of its history.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually an old quarry that the indigenous peoples would quarry rhyolite out, which is material they would use for weapons and tools, and it was traded all up and down the East Coast. The indigenous peoples fought for control of that land. I have an interest in the iron furnaces, and I think I've found remains. Well, I've only found remains of 5, but I know there's 7 or 8 of them up there, and probably more.
Yeah, there are a lot of them up there.
And for some reason there's like some kind of connection with like the other and cryptids and these iron furnaces, whether it's just synchronicities or what, but it's just you seem to find some kind of, like, at least in our area,
Yeah.
because we are close, Lon.
Yeah.
In our area, you seem to find like connections between these iron furnaces and these cryptid sightings and so on and so forth.
Me and Tim live within 20 miles of each other, so yeah, we're pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah, Misha is a weird place. I mean, I've been up there ever since I was a kid. I used to go trout fish. I used to go fly fishing up there, and I've had a few weird experiences. But no, BFRO actually recognizes it as, a hot spot in the United States as far as Bigfoot activity. Though I never really thought that until a couple of years, I started getting more and more reports out of there. For people who know the area, Route 30 runs right in the, right below, right south of Caledonia, but goes in the middle of, well, not in the middle, but it transects Micho State Forest. But people used to tell me at night they used to see Bigfoot walk out there and pick up roadkill up on Route 30. So
I don't doubt it one bit.
Yeah,
I don't doubt.
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
And then go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
I was gonna say, and then you just have all the weird place names, such as Dead Woman's Hollow. You have Haunted Hollow. You have Devil something Hollow. Harry Springs, which is Hairy, not Harry as in Harry. And it's just, there's just a lot of weirdness that goes on up there, and it's just not all cryptid stuff. There's a lot that just happens up there. So I mean, I've had multiple encounters and experiences up there with and without Tim, and it's just, I don't know. It's quite a place.
Like I said, I've been going up there ever since I was a little kid, and it's always been weird. I got chased out of there by the reservoir one time. I pulled up there and I was going to go up to the reservoir, and I didn't get but 5 foot into the weeds, and something big was coming through, and I got in the car and got the hell out of there. I mean, that place, there's a lot going on up there.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I said, yeah, I've been rushed up there too. I had something come barreling through the brush at me, and then it ended up there was nothing there.
Right.
But it wasn't a bear or a deer or anything like that. So
right.
Yeah, I know the feeling. But go ahead.
Yeah, we had a question here from King of Huco Mundo. I'm going to ask Carter, or any of y'all can answer this. How tall has been the size of the biggest Bigfoot ever recorded? That's kind of a loaded question because there's so many areas where these hairy hominids have been recorded. But let's just say in North America, what do you think? What do you think, Carter?
The biggest one a witness has described to me is 12 feet.
Okay.
And she was up in BC, Canada.
Okay.
And the biggest ones that many people say as you get further and further north into the hinterlands of Canada is 15 feet. They are claiming to see them.
Right.
And that doesn't seem that outrageous, to me, but 12 feet is the biggest one reported to me, and 15 is traditionally for the hinterlands of Canada, BC, and up in that area.
Well, we've had reports, down in the Dene Navajo reservation of these behemoths down there.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, of course, these are indigenous people that are telling us the size of these things, but some of them swear anywhere from 12 to 15 foot. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the hell to say.
That's kind of a regular number you hear for the big boys,
Yeah.
And, along with that size, according to many, goes the paranormal skills and aspects, and the smaller ones may not have those skills.
Well, that may be.
And that
may very well be.
When you get into the 12, 15 footers, up there, and I've got 4 people I communicate with regularly up there. They say that's pretty average. That's 2 humans. You put a
Yeah, well, I don't want to run up
standing on
against
your shoulders.
that is a I don't want to run up against anything that big. I'll be honest with you. The
Yeah,
one I ran up against was big enough.
Yeah, I'll run from a woman with a pot belly. So if you're like 12 feet tall, I'm out of there. I ain't gonna hang around. But it would be fascinating. What would you? I mean, I would love to see one that tall. I'm fairly certain
I would
haven't
do
seen anything much over 10. But even 10 is pretty good size when they're also triple, quadruple your weight or worse. You just go, okay, you are my new friend.
We a lot of these upright canine sightings that we get here in Pennsylvania. I'm talking about the big muscular, the ones that are really shaped. I mean, 10 foot is like nothing with those things from what we're getting from people. Now, I don't know if they're misidentifying them. I wouldn't think so just by the way they talk to us. But some of those sightings are huge. I mean, here we get into the whole, is it an actual being or is it something that's supernatural or whatever? But, we have regularly gotten sightings that size.
Yeah, here in Missouri, it's usually in the 8 to 10 with an occasional trip up to the 11 or 12. But it's virtually always an approximation. Well, it was one head over that knot in that oak tree, and that knot is like at 9 feet, so it must have been at least 10. That's what you get. But hey, if you're off by a foot, who cares? That's a big boy.
Well, that's true.
I mean, really. I mean, if you're thinking about, if you're describing a Sasquatch, if you're off by a foot and you're saying, well, between 10 and 12, I mean, it was huge. It was at least as high as my aunt's birdhouse back there, And so, what's a foot? They could tear you limb from limb if they want, which they don't, but they can. So it's just by sheer volume and size that they can intimidate you. That's all you need when you're that big.
I almost want to answer that question with a question.
Go ahead.
Are they, almost like bear? Different species get different sizes. A grizzly bear gets, twice the size of a black bear.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, you hear
location and species.
In Florida, the skunk apes, they're in the 4.5, 5 foot range, maybe 6. You get a little further, west and north, they get a little bigger. You get up to, Washington State and Oregon, they're even bigger in California in the upper north. So I think it is regional dispersal, and just different sizes for different species,
Well, just like now, Vincent put up here, do you think the Sasquatch behavior changes with region and climate? I guess you could say with size too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you're asking that to anybody, I say, do you think Sasquatch behavior changes with region and climate? Well, we were just talking about that. The skunk apes are smaller, but they appear to be considerably more aggressive and hostile.
Yeah, they seem to be aggressive.
Maybe the small man syndrome. You went to school. The short guy at school, he was a foot shorter than everybody else. He was always wanting to be a badass. So it may be that it might change when you're like the biggest guy on the block. You don't have to mess with too much. No one's going to mess with you. You don't have to do much. So you could be a little bit more laid back because you're the king of the beast. If you're a small guy, well, you're going to be like a little chihuahua nipping at everybody's heels. Well, I'll show you. That would make sense. I mean, that's how humans are. If you're short, some people get a chip. You got a short guy with a big truck. All those kind of comparisons, but it's kind of the same thing. I think in the animal world, if you're small and diminutive, you better have something else going for you, or you're just going to have to go to the back of the line and eat leftovers like everybody else.
I imagine if I was a hairy beast that had to live in the swamps of Florida in that humidity, I'd be angry too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And ducking pythons and everything else down there.
Yeah.
That's where the term swamp cooler came from, because they didn't have them down there. So, but yeah, I think the size dispersal may be due to climate, terrain. If they get bigger up into Canada and Washington State, you got all the mountains, you got to do all the hiking and climbing. Smaller oxygen, the higher up you go. So you may have to be bigger and badder than everybody else in those areas where, like here in Missouri, we have some big boys. 8 to 10 is usually the range. 6.5 to 8 is normal. 8 to 10 is the upper limits, with an occasional foray into 11 or 12, but that's rare here. As
Well, now you guys, all three of you guys haven't been on the team but a couple of years, and of course you hear me in my foray talking about the winged humanoid phenomenon. And I've never really asked you guys about that. So why don't you give me I'm quite sure you've read the reports, what we posted and all. What are your thoughts on all that? I'm going to start off with Chad.
Like, what are my thoughts on the Chicago stuff, or just winged
not only
humanoids in
that,
general?
but the whole winged humanoid, the Mothman winged humanoid phenomena.
I personally don't have too much experience with that.
Okay.
And I will say, we do have our local one here.
Absolutely.
Which you're very, very familiar with. I think you even had possibly an encounter with it yourself.
Yeah,
and
that kind of long ago.
Yep. And I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's probably the best known one, but there have been others too, and of course.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't know. I don't really. It's hard for me to even say on that.
Yeah.
Because I haven't had too much experience with it. So.
Hey, Chad, where are you at exactly regionally?
I am in York County, Pennsylvania, so I'm in South Central PA. I'm in between Gettysburg and York.
Gotcha.
If you're familiar with that area.
Yeah, he's pretty close to me. Yeah. You're in Spring Grove, right?
Yeah. I'm literally probably like 20 minutes from Lon.
Yeah.
And
I live in Adams County, but I'm right on the line. So
I'm very close to the line with Adams County. So I roam around most of PA, though. I do a lot of hiking and camping all throughout Pennsylvania. So, but it seems to be, at least in this area here, and I'm just going by with what I know with folklore and the accounts that we have collected, or Tim has collected, and the one or two I've gotten from strange familiars, they seem to follow the creeks, at least here.
Yeah, they do.
So, especially specifically the Caughnawaga. Now, whether you have one that also comes from the Codorus Furnace, but near the river there at the Susquehanna, where the Codorus and the Caughnawaga dump out, are somewhat close. So whether there's something traveling between those two creeks, I don't know. But it seems to be, I got one contact from somebody that was near New Oxford, which is where the little Caughnawaga comes in, which is, I guess they were somewhat downstream from Camp Caughnawaga.
Right.
And this was somewhat recently, so I have to follow up. Yeah, I'm going to be following up with them.
Well, I hope you do. I want to hear that one.
I got their information, so it's only a matter of time before because we have a long list of what we're working through. So we'll eventually get to that.
I know Tim has talked to me about, and it's hard to get into Camp Caughnawaga now. You got to know somebody to get in there.
I've tried. But they don't want you in there.
I know. I'm gonna see if I can kind of pull some strings, because I have wanted to go back up there. Now, of course, there's a state game land not far from there either.
Yeah, so, we've actually roamed that at night along the Caughnawaga, and we had some weird stuff going on. So whether it was that or something else, who knows? But if you do the history, because I like to go back to look at the history and all that stuff, Camp Caughnawaga has always been kind of like a gathering spot. I think they used to gather there when this area was frontier. They actually used to
Yes, they
gather there to sell furs and all that stuff.
The Susquehannock Indians used to be a meeting place for them, and then when they got moved out, some of the fur trappers set up. There was a trading post set up there.
Yep.
And then that was kind of the gateway into the west. Going into western Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a lot of trading posts up and down there. So but you're right. I mean, it's a well-known area. I mean, the Susquehannock used to hang out in there. I know the Shawnee did as well. It's a little further south for the Delaware and the Lenape, but there's been a lot of Native American tribes in that area or in this area. So
a lot of crossroads. So
yeah.
And then you think about it, if it's a crossroad, it's a liminal space. And a lot of these things happen in liminal spaces. So, and I think we just talked to a guy recently, and we're going to be talking to him. He has seen it. Now, this is down more towards where the Caughnawaga dumps into the Susquehanna. He's down near that area, and he has seen something along the lines of the Caughnawaga Phantoms. So,
well, there was one seen right off Iron Furnace Road too.
Okay.
Not far from the
Cador's Furnace.
Cador's Furnace.
Yep. And that was probably the one I was talking about that seemed to travel between the two furnaces, between the two creeks.
A mother and a daughter, actually, this thing showed up behind their car one day.
Oh, my.
Yeah, but I would have liked to seen that conversation.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen enough of the red eye, the glowing red eyes. And when I say glowing red eyes, I don't mean the eye shine. I'm talking about literally the glowing red eyes.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would do if I saw something drop on the hood of my car or something like that. So it would be quite interesting. So, but yeah, that's my experience. What it is, I don't know. And I don't think we'll ever really, really know.
Well, and this is what I've been saying for a long time. I had my encounter in 1988 up at Caughnawaga. But the funny thing is, why am I getting the one involved primarily, well, of course, with Manuel and Tobias, with this stuff in Chicago? Because what they're seeing is very similar to what I saw. I was talking about this thing 25 years before the things in Chicago started. So I don't know. I don't get it.
Here's a question. I've been wanting to ask you this forever, but
sure.
Illinois, you're the king of the Mothman, and somewhat Sasquatch, but you got the Mothman and Dogman, especially up in the Northeast, like Pennsylvania. So I'm just trying to figure, are they dispersed because of the cave system? Is no one reporting them? Do they like the area? Because, Missouri, I've taken out of probably 450 to 500 witnesses now, I've taken 3 Dogman reports. 1, I put in the book with a photo. 2, I just put them as also noted. Dogman's just not reported down here, but for every Sasquatch report I get, you get 3 Mothmans. So they love your corridor up there for whatever reason.
I don't know what it is about the Chicago area.
Cave system?
I don't know if it's the water, the forest, or whatever it is. That's something we just haven't been able to figure out. The fact that we're getting all these sightings around that airport for more recently.
That's crazy, yeah.
It's crazy. It is crazy. I mean, 160 sightings so far that we consider to even be valid sightings.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot more that aren't getting reported. And it's a hot spot. Now, why that is, that area, Illinois and Indiana have always been known for Thunderbird sightings and pterosaur sightings and other winged being sightings. I mean, for centuries. I mean, even the indigenous people used to draw petroglyphs and such of these things. But why these things are showing up now, I don't know.
But they're so concentrated. Like Chicago is like the poster boy for Chicago would be the Mothman. You know, Missouri is Sasquatch. You know, it's that they don't trickle down. What is it? Is it the cave system that they're using to hide? And
I don't know.
Because it is odd that the Mothman, Dogman, Pale Whites, Slenderman, they're not around here. Sasquatch they are, but you just get just tiny little snippets of reports of that. But up there, you know, you're probably 3 or 4 to 1 on Sasquatch reports versus Missouri. You know, we have you outnumbered, but you the Mothman. It's just odd that they seem to have lit into a certain region and like it there.
You know, this has been the big mystery from the very beginning. I mean, you know, this is something that we've been trying to figure out.
Yeah, it's just bizarre. Do you not have a state income tax in Illinois? So that's why there's more. I'm just trying to figure out, you know, what's the attraction? You know, is it a cave system? Is it the climate, or is it the food sources?
Illinois, I don't know about cave systems in Illinois. I don't think it's as much as it is here in Pennsylvania. I mean, that could be a factor here in Pennsylvania. We got a lot of caves. But
we don't have the mountains. You know, we don't have the mountains.
Well, unless you go south. I mean, you know, you go down into the Ozarks, but you know, and that's another story of the Ozarks. Oh my God, it's crazy down there.
The men and the sheep are nervous.
Absolutely.
You know, I was actually thinking about that today, and I have a theory.
Okay.
You talk about the portals and stuff.
Yeah.
What if they're not using portals to come visit us, but more of a shortcut from this dimension to the next?
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so they're here briefly enough to be seen, and then, you know,
anything's on the table. You know, and that's why there's the argument with the in my specific area of interest, which is Sasquatch, was with the apers and the paranormal or quantum faction.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the never-ending argument is, you know, they can't do this, they can't be this, and so we're at loggerheads. That's why there's all this, you know, turmoil.
Well, you know, this is something we ran across this week. I mean, you know, and it's big in the Sasquatch community, but it's big everywhere. Why is all the infighting and bickering and moaning and groaning, and nobody wants to even want to work together?
Everybody wants to be number one.
Well, I guess that's what it is.
I mean, what else is it? Your ego, is there like $1 million prize if you're the one or something? It does not, well, it does make sense. But in that we're all in this together, there should be some even loose-knit camaraderie, and there isn't. You know, we discussed this earlier this week when somebody went bonkers over my book cover. And just wouldn't let it be and was just trashing me. He's a fellow researcher. It's like, what? You don't have to trash me to disagree, and let's have a debate and conversation. So we all have our opinions as to paranormal, quantum, flesh and blood only, blah, 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 you know, which is fine. That's how we get somewhere, you know.
Well, that's why we have the group. I mean, you know, but when it comes out of the group, and that's a problem. And you know, I'm not putting up with that.
And you run a nice tight ship. You have one of the better paranormal operations that I've been a part of. You just don't allow it. You know, you don't allow it. And by you don't allow it, you actually take action. You don't just like go, now you stop that, Bobby. You be nice to Carter. You know,
I found that doesn't work.
It's like, get the hell out of here.
Yeah,
The
I found that
thing
doesn't
is,
work.
the thing is, honestly, and you said about everybody's opinions, Carter. When you do this research, you really shouldn't put your opinion on things because and I'm not saying you in general, I mean everybody in general.
Okay.
You shouldn't put your opinions when you're doing research because if you're doing right science, okay, you look at everything, all the evidence, and then you draw your conclusions by looking at all the evidence, whether it's, and I'm just going to use the Bigfoot thing because, like you said, you had the apers and the relic hominids and all that, and the high strangeness people and the paranormal and the whole dimension and all that. But you should look at all the evidence, no matter how small and inconclusive it is, and take it all into account. Because a lot of times when you have the Bigfoot reports, you have the crazy things like lights in the woods. Somebody might have seen a UFO or whatever, but you should take all that into account. And like you said, we should all be kind of working together and looking at it as a whole, holistically. I mean, I think we would get a little further that way. If you know what I mean.
That's why I put the team together in the first place. I mean, and
exactly.
I
I'm the
felt
last
like
guy to
people
fight and argue, but if you're going to start, calling me names and
well, that's ridiculous. That's just ridiculous.
That's what we're talking about when you take it to a level that is far above professional. It is so beyond. Like, are you 12 years old or what is wrong with you?
Exactly.
Boo-boo. I saw one you didn't. I mean, it's just gotten so high schoolish. It's just ridiculous. I'm very careful about when I put an opinion out there. I've done, like you said, I do my homework best of my ability. I do my homework. I vet my witnesses best I can, and at the end of the day, you have to have some faith in your fellow man, not too much, but just enough, but it's just bizarre that we are turning on ourselves, and it's for no other reason than ego and the possible big prize at the end of the thing. I get to pull the $1 million pot out of the tree because I found a body. It's gone beyond research, and it's all satisfying our egos and our positions in the Sasquatch community.
Right.
That's the way I look at it. It's just like, it's gotten ridiculous, and I'm building a website. I'm just going to get off of social here pretty quick because I'm going to just share my stuff on my web page because, this social media thing, it's great to connect, but boy, you get the little keyboard warrior guys on there. Oh, you're so full of crap. And,
I know.
It's just like I'm back in high school, junior high even. Heck, kids are more mature in high school. I'm like in junior high. And we all experience it, I'm not preaching. I am preaching to the choir. We all see it and hear it, but when some of the stuff went down with people that should know considerably better, they're hurting all of us for their own ego and gratification. That's all they care about. It's a lot of people that shouldn't be in this are in it. And
but you see it all throughout the community. You really do. And some of these arguments just really get bad. And unfortunately, there are too many people that just like to see it festering and get worse. But I will say that's not going to happen on my bunch. I mean, that is just not going to happen. I'm not going to put up with that. I may get criticized for it sometimes, but I just am not going to put up with that. We got too much other stuff going. I've got too much other stuff going on. They'd be worried about that. And
we always want to kumbaya and be all for one and one for all. It doesn't happen. It may not happen because everybody's, most of the critique comes from people who have been in the woods very little, if at all. They're just keyboard people. Well, I saw this picture. That can't be, you're comparing apples to, rutabagas. You're not even close. What's your comparison based on? It's so silly. And, in all of this turmoil that we create amongst our investigator selves keeps us in the bog, because the more turmoil we have and we're generating, the less likely we're going to get to find anything out, because we're too busy trying to be number one and point our finger at him and her, and you're no
Yeah.
good, you're no good, you're my friend, I like you, and I don't like you, and I don't like you. God, I quit doing that stuff like 50 years ago. Jesus, come on, people. It's just very frustrating. I mean,
Yeah, it is. It is. And that's why I appreciate the team, because I mean, we got a bunch of people on there that are doing a lot of what I'm not doing, because I'm not out in the field very rarely anymore. Though I'm going to try to eventually. But I'm behind the keyboard doing all kinds of other stuff and taking calls and stuff. But I got folks like you and all going out there and with boots in the ground and looking into cases. And I think it works. But
it just came to a head that
it did
a few days ago, and it was just so out of line,
Yeah.
And this person was calling my stuff crap, and I went and looked at his and other people's stuff that were all chiming in. Oh yeah, that's garbage. You're right. You're right. They all got garbage. I mean, they're all passing the same crap around and saying the same stuff. It's not productive. It's not mature. It's not like, how do we talk to one another and come to an agreement like, well, I believe this might be, you don't have to like somebody's work, but you can question and debate how they arrived at an opinion instead of, you're full of crap. That's bull. I mean, you might as well just flip them off and kill their mothers. I mean, what's going to stop you from just driving by and throwing a Molotov cocktail through my window? I mean, the hate is just palatable. And everybody here knows what I'm talking about, whether you've been a victim of it or not, is another thing, but everybody probably has, or you see it and you go, oh my God, what's wrong with that guy or that girl or woman? It's just bizarre. Is it that big a deal? Well, it is. It is. Yeah, there's a book. That's a good book. Oh, wait, maybe it's not. I know the guy that wrote that. I think he's on drugs. You know what I mean? So, but I've written 3 books, and they're all just mostly events from my witnesses.
Right.
The last book, the one I just put out, it's got habituation and visitation, paranormal. Very, very little of it is your aper, your meat and potato. I saw one cross the road. I've got a woman who saw, 5 Sasquatch herd 60, 70 deer and kill 5, and they all walked down with a deer over their shoulder. Watched one night at midnight while she was waiting for her friends to meet her in the middle of the woods. I mean, there's stuff going on that people need to know about, and we're busy fighting amongst ourselves. We're not doing our witnesses any favors or anything like that, But
I agree with you.
But it's not healthy for what we're trying to get done. It's just not healthy. And some of the worst offenders are researchers.
Oh yeah. Got a question for Chad. What's the weirdest thing you've experienced in the woods?
Oh, geez. It's been a lot in the last couple years. I would say like the stuff that's happened to me. Well, I don't know. The one when we were down in Maryland in a place we call Gazoo's Woods, and I made the folkloric mistake of asking for something, which you normally shouldn't do.
Oh, wow.
And Tim cringed when I did it.
I bet he did.
And the next thing you know, we had this weird, it was almost like a combination of like an eagle scream and some other odd animal. It was just bizarre. And it was just this weird noise. And I was just like, yeah, it's time to go. But I would say recently, the weirdest one had to be definitely when I was standing there and I was recording my friend Caleb at the campfire, and I just kind of looked up to my friend's tent and I just saw that big gray shape loom up. That was the one I would say was kind of the weirdest one.
Yeah.
Because that spooked me. That was one of the few times I've actually been spooked. And then yeah. And then when you see like a set of red eyes, you're looking at them and then you literally see them blink slowly like a cat, and it's up in the tree. That's bizarre too. So yeah, I've had a lot of weird stuff happen to me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Here's an interesting question. King of Huco Mundo. Have you guys heard of a Canadian saying he has a Bigfoot body? I have heard so many people who have claimed to have Bigfoot bodies over the past 50 years. I mean, 45 years. It just drives me crazy. Of course, everybody remembers the Georgia Bigfoot fiasco, and we've had a few of others in the past as well. But that was probably the most notorious. But as far as a Canadian guy, I don't know. There's a lot of people who say
talking about the dog trainer that has all those videos.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Was he in Canada?
Yeah, he is in Canada.
I think he has one on ice, and he'll thaw it out and show you parts of it and then put it back in the freezer. I'm trying to think of his name, but he's got if you go on YouTube and look for dog trainer Sasquatch videos, you might find the guy. And he's nuts. I mean, there's something wrong. It is an awesome looking body, but I don't believe it's actually this is one his dad, I think, killed or captured or something a long time ago.
Really?
Got 2 vocal cords, 2 larynxes. It's got all this other stuff. But yeah, you know who I'm talking about. I can't remember the guy's name.
I think I know who you're talking about.
He trains dogs, or he's a dog boarder. And that's what he does. But he also has a Sasquatch on ice that he keeps frozen in his property.
I tell you what, if I had a Sasquatch, if I came across a Sasquatch body, make sure first it wasn't some person and pretending to be one, but I would take that thing, load it up in my truck, and I'd be driving down to the Smithsonian that day. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't just throw it in the freezer.
Well, you hear all these stories. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I've heard too many people say they've had Bigfoot bodies and this and that. It just kind of goes over my head now because, that whole Georgia Bigfoot thing, and then the same guy saying he killed one down in Houston. I mean, what a joke.
Yeah, I'm looking at the guy now. Dog trainer with Sasquatch. I Googled it. Bigfoot used me to have a baby, grown man cries. Bigfoot, and I have it. He has a severed head. I'm looking at all the stuff.
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Is that the guy with the buffalo head?
Huh?
Is that the guy who has the frozen buffalo head?
Well, it looks like a Sasquatch head or a bad model. It looks like it's about 20 feet long here. Peter Kane, I think, is his name. Bigfoot forced me to do it. He's got all kinds of stories.
Oh my God.
But yeah,
he's a content creator. Oh, that's the guy. That's it.
That's the one I got right there.
That's it. That's that head looks like it looks like a dead bison's head.
Yeah, it's bizarre. It's got like 27 rows of teeth. I can't remember. But see, this guy is comic relief. But when people who don't know anything about Sasquatch see this, we look like buffoons.
I know.
Your research, because this is the kind of stuff. I mean, they lump you in with it all of a sudden. That's the guy. Thanks, Vince. That was good one. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, I know who it was now. Yeah, that's the guy that has the bison head.
I never really thought about that. It is about the size of a bison head.
Yeah, it looks like it's a bison head. That's exactly what it is. Because I called him out on it about 2 years ago, and so that's crazy.
Yeah, he's had it frozen for 65 years. Just waiting for the right time to spring it on America. Keep waiting, cowboy. But that kind of stuff does hurt us.
Yeah,
because
it does.
when you have the real thing, So, but that is him. It's just funny. I mean, he was crying about getting sexually assaulted, and all. I mean, it's just like,
yeah, I didn't hear all that.
Yeah, but it's in there. Yeah, Bigfoot used me to have a baby. Read that one. That's a pretty good one. Yeah. So that's what we're up against,
Yeah.
we're lumped in with, because it's crazy people believe in it. It's a fake, it's a hoax. It doesn't exist anyway, period. So we're all chasing rainbows. And so when somebody like that pops up, he gets all the attention because, well, look at that. That's wow. That's crazy. He ought to be on, Tonight Show. I mean, that's crazy stuff. But that hurts us. That kind of stuff hurts us. Just like the infighting does, that guy's making a mockery of it. I would hate to think that he has actually got one. I would really probably jump off a building if I knew that he was legit. I couldn't.
Carter, here's one for you from Vincent. When was the moment you made sure that Bigfoot exists?
When I was leading an expedition for Bigfoot for BFRO 2014, Missouri, I watched one flat out disappear while I was watching it on thermal camera. It came around a corner. Did not know we were there because we were being quiet. We were maintaining radio silence because we had a party that was lost. So we were just just watching the forest for the glow so we could see them. And this Sasquatch walked around the corner. It did not see us. And it just poof, it just vanished like a flash bulb went off. I was watching it on my beautiful thermal signature coming around the curve, and poof, took one step, two steps, second step, boom, it was gone. Just like that.
Really?
I was with the Aper crowd. So at that point, I was baptized, and I went from apes only, because I had just gotten into it at that time, to, okay, we're on to something else here. This is bizarre. Well, that was it for me. I mean, that's my aha moment, and no one will ever convince me. They're probably flesh and blood, but they probably have the ability to operate in both planes of existence, all dimensions, all.
Yeah, I mean, of course, that's what I think. Tommy, let me ask you this. Now, you've been with us about a year now. You weren't really into all this stuff. You're a hunter. You've been out an outdoorsman a lot for a long time, all your life. What phenomena, as far as cryptids go, do you believe and don't believe?
If you'd asked me that 2 years ago, I'd have said I don't believe in any of it. But that all changes. The more you see, the more you experience, the more you talk to. That all has changed. I mean, to me now, anything's on the table. I still personally have never seen a Bigfoot or a cryptid of any type, but it's turned pretty wild the past couple years.
Yeah.
Just take one sighting. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All the hunters that have said, I've been in these woods for 35 years. I've never seen one. If they existed, I'd have seen it. They don't exist. Then you get a call a couple months later. Can we talk? Because they've had the aha moment. And you hear that from a lot of people. And I understand we're all taught from the day we get out of the birth canal how the world is, what exists and what doesn't. So the first 20 years of your life, you're told how the world is. Your books, your teachers, your professors, everybody is handed books and they just tell you how things are. So by the time you're 20 to 22, if you go to college, maybe 23 or 4, graduate, you've been brainwashed or conditioned for 20 some odd years, the first 20 years of your life, your formative years, of what exists, what doesn't, how the world is and how it isn't. That's all you know. You're trusting the people who teach you and talk to you and show you things, that this is how the world is. Okay, I believe you. Then suddenly,
I was that guy that I've hunted the same property my entire life and never experienced anything. But then last year, one day sitting in a deer stand, beautiful, calm day, nothing around, there was a brilliant blue flash of light that came from behind me. No thunder, no other noise, just a giant blue flash of light. I can't even begin to guess what that was. I don't know.
Interesting.
But what does it do to your belief system? Has it elevated you? Has it moved you up a bit? I mean,
Definitely.
You at least have an open mind about because it's hard if you've been taught these things can't happen and you see it, like the blue orbs. My wife saw a blue orb in our bedroom and I was having an experience 325 miles away with a clan. She saw a blue orb flying through our bedroom at nearly the identical time that I was having an event in Illinois, many hundreds of miles away. So at some point you have to go, okay, all this weirdness there's something going on, as long as it gives you a peek into what's maybe going on, because that's all it took for me. I saw that, I'm going, that just disappeared. What? I wasn't drunk, I wasn't stoned, my equipment was top notch, a nice FLIR camera. I mean, everything was fine, and all of a sudden I'm watching this thing and I'm going, what? It changes everything. Just like for you, Tommy. I mean, it changes things. It makes you think differently. You don't necessarily believe all the way, but you're thinking, you're going, well, I can't explain that. Maybe, it's bizarre. The baptism might take a couple of years, could take 20 minutes, it just depends on where you're at and what happens to you.
And I say you've always got to be a little skeptical, because if you're not, you're going to be a sucker.
Yeah. No, yeah, you got to be, and I've flat out asked anybody in my books, is this real? Did you stage this? This is your chance. And if I'm standing in front of them in person, I'm looking them in the eye. If you're going to lie to me, lie to my face. Let's go. Did you stage this? I mean, you just ask them flat out. Most people don't even expect to be asked that question. You're just going to take their word for it. So when you ask them, they go, you can tell a lot by body language and the way they answer, or don't, So.
Yep. Well, guys, let's go around the horn and get some final thoughts. Chad, you got anything to say?
No, I'm pretty good. I mean, we seem to really cover a lot of stuff tonight, and I'm just continuing on this journey with everybody else. To me, it's not so much. I'm not trying to solve the big question of what all this stuff is, because personally, I don't think we're never going to find out, and honestly, I don't think we're meant to find out. And if you get close, you always have that trickster element that kicks in and kicks you back. And so to me, I'm just all about collecting people's stories, giving people the opportunity to tell their stories and just experiencing it, that's pretty much how we go when we go out and we investigate. And even when I go out by myself and stuff, I'm not just like you, Carter. I'm not out there banging on the trees or anything like that. I just go out and just let it happen.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, it just seems to be, like, especially if me and Tim are in an area where that's active, and I'd say that with air quotes. If it's there, it's going to say hi. It seems to be that the more you do this, we call it the Eye of Sauron effect. It's like you put the One Ring on, and for those who know Tolkien lore, and it likes to say hi and say, "Oh, you pay attention." And that seems to be the key. So, but yeah.
How about you, Tommy? What what do you expect? I mean, I know, like I said, you've been with us for a year or so. You've read a lot of what people have experienced. You've had a few experiences of your own. What do you expect in the future?
Well, I have no idea. A heck of a ride, I'm sure.
Well, let's hope.
I don't know if I really have any expectations. I'm just happy to, like Chad said, just to go out in the woods and be out and about, and whatever happens, happens. I'm content just to spend the time in the woods and see what I can find.
And you, Carter, I know you've got something to say.
Oh yeah. Well, a couple things, like Rodney King used to say before he passed away, can't we all just get along? cryptid, not just Sasquatch, but cryptid research in general is fraught with just hate and negativity, and everybody wants to be somebody. Everybody wants to be the one. We're never going to get anywhere if we are always fighting each other for camera time or show time or whatever time. You know, we can't all be, we're going to do this together. You know, I mean, you know, and that's part of what I just want to say. Investigators, researchers, whatever you call yourselves, quit trying to be so important. Quit trying to be the one. Just play well with, find 5 researchers you agree with, not on your beliefs, but you agree to disagree and you discuss things. It's easy to do, but nobody wants to do it. You know, that's the frustration with me. You know, myself, I'm not getting out in the woods as often as I am my habituation properties, because my habituation properties, they have 3 of the 4 have got some bizarre, awesome stuff going, and that's where I'm spending my time, because they're open and they're honest and they want to tell you the stories. And I'm getting some incredible, and I'm going to call it evidence. It's evidence of activity. I won't say it's proof that they exist, but it's evidence that there's something going on. And so that's where I'm spending my time. You know, somebody comes to you and starts telling you weird stuff, listen to them. Don't just tune them out, because there might be something there. That's where it got me where I'm at. I'm 5 books later. I might be working on a 6th. I don't even want to do another one. I'm tired. People keep calling me. I got a call today, you know, for an email, not a call. But it's just like it keeps coming in because they know I'll listen. So if you're ever listening to somebody and you're not in the paranormal, quantum, or woo, which I think is a dirty word, factor, listen to some of these people, because they got things going on that you're not going to hear because everybody laughs at them. You know, my books are full of that stuff, and everybody's laughing at me instead of my witnesses. So I designed it that way. Just, you know, listen to the people that are telling you the weird stuff, because that's where it's at. That's where the secrets are at.
I agree. Yeah. It's always best to listen.
Yeah.
So, guys, I appreciate you coming on with me tonight, and we are going to do future shows with the team. And you all have a good weekend. I'll be talking to you soon.
All right.
See
Well, everybody enjoyed it.
You take care. Now, if you've had a sighting or encounter report that you'd like to be considered for the personal report show or posted on Phantoms Monsters, feel free to contact me at my email, Lon Strickler, phantomsmonsters.com. I want to again thank Carter, Tommy, and Chad for joining me this evening. And thanks to each and all of you for watching and chatting. If you did make a donation, it's very much appreciated. Please like, subscribe, share, and even comment. So next Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific, my guest will be the alien hunter, Daryl Sims. This will be the first time I've interviewed Daryl, so it should be a very informative show. So make sure you come in next Friday night and listen to that. And stay tuned for A Paranormal Life of Bernadette McDaniel with her guest, Duke Sullivan, here on Phantoms Monsters Radio at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. So until we meet again, stay safe and healthy. Good night.